Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I will share with you my May wrap-up, but before we get into that I just wanted to do a call to action. As you may know, and I hope you do and have been following the news, there have been protests in the United States relating to the continued police brutality against Black people. And I would urge you to donate if you are able. I will leave resources down in the description so that you may check out some of the causes and some of the organizations that are asking for donations right now to help fight the corrupt system. And this has also caused some tension in the book community, rightfully so, and many Black creators have been speaking up about their experiences in the book community. And I do not want to speak over anyone, so instead you will be seeing cards popping up during this video, which will link back to all these Black creators talking about their experiences regarding Booktube and regarding living as Black people and experiences with racism. And I will also leave their videos linked in the description. And you may be wondering, well, this is Booktube, I want to be here to escape all the bullshit in real life. Well, the fact that some of you can do that is in itself a huge luxury that is not afforded to every single person on this planet. So maybe think on that and try to educate yourself and try to provide help and support where you can. And with that said, we can now move on to the wrap-up, but I just want you to keep that in mind going forward. The first book that I finished during May was Finna by Nino Cipri. Nino Cipri is a non-binary author. This is their debut work. It's a novella published by Tor.com, and it features a bisexual main character and a non-binary Black Caribbean former love interest. And River Solomon did the sensitivity read for this book, so I think that's also important to know when you go into this. And this book, this story, is sort of a parallel universe adventure romp. It starts in this, basically an IKEA knockoff called Littenveld, and these two employees, Ava and Jules, because of them being the junior employees in this huge furniture box store, when a customer goes missing in one of these interdimensional portals, they are tasked with going after that customer and to bring her back. And that is very uncomfortable in and of itself, to go jumping off into the multiverse willy-nilly without any training and experience. But they are also just recently broken up, so there is this huge tension between them. And I am very conflicted about this book because I really wanted to like it, and I can see this good story being held captive in the confines of this novella. I think this should have been longer. I think the characters needed some more development, and especially I think the characters needed some growth and further exploration regarding who they were as people outside of their relationship. Because this book leans so heavily into Ava and Jules' relationship and how they became exes that it completely forgets about them as individual characters. I did not get to really know them as people outside of them having been in a relationship. Also, I think that the world building aspects were the best ones, were the best thing about this book. I really loved all of the different Liten worlds that the characters end up going to. I loved the descriptions of the world, and I felt that the characters being so flat really held back my enjoyment. Like, I was really excited about these lush descriptions of these different kinds of worlds, and then you are stuck with these characters, and they are not really they are not interesting people, and they are also not good people. And that really got on my nerves when I was trying to enjoy the story. Part of the reason why I felt that these characters were not really good people was the lack of exploration on who they were, and the way that the author uses basically other minor characters and side characters as strawmen to make them sort of like these easy targets for these characters to take down, to show some sort of like political affiliation. And that rubbed me the wrong way, because like, sure, like, seeing these strawman characters be defeated in an argument may be satisfying, but it's not how real world operates. People's prejudices and biases are very complex. I think it is much more interesting to look into people that might be pretty decent people. Like, you might think that they are decent people, and then explore their biases, their judgments, and how they are complicit in making a toxic environment. That is something that is complex. It is gritty. It is not it is uncomfortable. It is not something that is fun to read, and it is not immediately gratifying. I think this book is all about direct payoff and not the build up to it, and that's why I thought that this book was pretty lackluster for my taste. So I ended up giving Finna 2.5 stars. Like, I like the world building aspects. I am interested in reading something else by this author, but this novella wasn't it for me. The next book that I finished in May was Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig Rice. Waubgeshig Rice is an indigenous author from Canada, and this book, which I listened to on audio, is also narrated by Bill Merasty, who is another indigenous Canadian. And I really loved this story. It is basically a sort of precursor to an apocalypse. So we are on this reservation, this Canadian Indigenous reservation, and it talks about how people there have always lived in isolation, and they have always lived with limited resources. So when suddenly the electricity goes down, the radio goes down, internet goes down, they don't at first worry about it, because they haven't had power and those sorts of modern technology and modern resources for long. So it's kind of this slow build toward something sinister. You see these people on this reservation go about their daily lives. You get introduced to various people, and like, in such a short span of pages, you get to know all about their like family dynamics, how things are run on the reservation, how these different families view each other, how they raise their children, what they disagree on, and this sort of divide between the elderly population, who are very sort of traditional and try to keep up with the traditions, versus the younger generation that has become more modernized and more basically colonized by modern technology. And you never get to know what the cause of the apocalypse is. It is not told, and you don't really need to know, because that's not the point. The point is the journey. The point is the exploration of isolation and of the unknown, because these people don't know what's happening. They have to rely on their community and on themselves to survive. And it deals with themes of independence, of colonization, of the repercussions of what colonizing does to a culture, and how you can sort of break free from the chains of generational trauma. And I thought that was really interesting. And it's also like explored in the way that there's this antagonistic character that gets introduced about halfway through the book. That's an outsider that comes to the reservation, and how that character begins to sort of pit the people against each other and to try and make profit on resources. And that's kind of a sort of a modern foil for what a colonizer might look like. I thought that's, like, this book was wonderful. I highly recommend it. The audiobook was, in my opinion, very wonderful. The narrator has a very soothing, low voice that really pulls you into the story. There's also this idea of prophetic dreams and what they mean, and that being another link to old traditions. I really love this book, so I gave it 4 stars and would highly recommend it. Then, during the month of May, I also listened to the entire Love, Sugar, Magic trilogy by Anna Meriano. I listened to it in 3 days. So one day I listened to the first one, A Dash of Trouble, and then the next day I listened to the second one, which was A Sprinkle of Spirits, and then the last day I listened to A Mixture of Mischief. And I even, like, the first 2 were available on Scribd, so I listened to them there. And then, because I couldn't find the third one on anywhere and I just needed to finish the series, I actually went and re-established my Audible subscription so that I could listen to the rest of the series. You can probably tell from my sheer excitement that I love this. This Love, Sugar, Magic is a middle grade trilogy all about these brujas, this family of brujas, and their family magic is tied to love and sugar. So there's lots of baking. They're basically kitchen witches. And the main character, Leonora, is she's like 10 years old, and at the start of the series she doesn't know that her family are brujas, and she desperately wants to join in on whatever they are keeping secret from her. She does this via snooping and gets in trouble because she unleashes a spell on an unwitting person, and it causes all kinds of trouble, and the whole series starts from there. And it is so wonderful. There are themes of miscommunication and trying to build trust within your family. There are themes of sisterhood and friendship, and also Leonora's best friend is also dealing with grief because her mother died from cancer. This whole book series is so wholesome. It deals with very difficult topics such as grief and bullying and public shaming and all that in very nuanced ways. It does it in a way that doesn't talk down to its audience, but also isn't too complicated for them to not get it. So I highly recommend this series. I feel like I gave this book somewhere around 3.5 to 4.5 stars per book. But the whole series on enjoyment level alone and the way the whole arc of the story is executed, this is a 5-star trilogy for me. I will definitely be getting physical copies of this, and I will be sharing them with my nephew when he's a little older. And then I listened to The Deep by River Solomon. This was also available on Scribd. The audio is narrated by David Diggs, and I liked it. I didn't love it. I feel like the story itself is really powerful. It's about this community, this species of mer people that are descended from the pregnant slave women that were pushed overboard during the transatlantic slave trade. And it deals with their history and also the generational trauma that keeps them from fully connecting with their history because it is so painful. So they have this concept of a historian who basically keeps all the memories, all of the history of their people inside them, and then once a year they give those memories back. And during this this particular moment in time, the historian called Yetu, in the middle of the ritual to release the memories upon her people, she decides to run away. So she leaves her people to dwell in the pain of the memories and runs away. And it deals with the aftermath of that, how there's a storm brewing because of her people are so in pain, and this idea that there's sort of like a symbolism there that when people are so in pain because of these traumatic experiences and this traumatic history, that they lash out, and that sort of creates this whirlpool of hate and anger that gets like pushed to the rest of the world. And I thought that there was something really powerful in that. And I think what my main gripe with this was that it was so short. I feel like it should have been a longer book so that there would have been more time to explore Yetu herself and not just her people and her history. The book is split in ways that every other chapter is from Yetu's point of view and every other chapter is from a previous historian's point of view, and goes over the history of Yetu's people, and that left little to no time for Yetu herself, which is actually kind of interesting because the whole point of Yetu's journey is trying to discover who she is and trying to maintain her own agency and trying to like assert her own personality, and she talks about this with several characters. So I thought that it was a shame that she didn't really get the chance to fully shine, but that's just my opinion. I also thought that the ending was a little too quick. The resolution, it just sort of happened like this. I wish that there could have been like one more chapter to kind of like build it up and build up the resolution and sort of make it less easy, less of an easy fix. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I still think that it's a powerful read. And the final thing that I read in May was Unnatural, Volume 1, Awakening by Mirka Andolfo. Mirka Andolfo is an Italian comic book artist, and she wrote and drew and colored this book and this series by herself. Like she did the bulk of the work, and I think that's amazing. Also, this is beautiful. And this book is basically like sort of a mix between Zootopia and Beastars, but more like erotic and smutty and like a romantic dystopian romp. sort of like a urban paranormal romance, but with like furry characters. That's basically this book. And it takes place in this world where, like, there are these anthropomorphic animal characters, and their society is built on this premise of natural marriages. Basically, you need to marry from your own species, and if you are in an unnatural relationship, the government will intervene and they will put you on a re-education camp, and they will force you into a marriage that will result in genetically perfect offspring to keep the species purity, so to speak. So it talks about like supremacy, who gets to decide, bodily autonomy, agency, reproductive rights. It's all in here, but it's not very what word would I use to describe this? It's not very nuanced. This isn't a comic book series that I would read for like the perfect writing, the analytics, the themes and the importance of them. This is an erotic romp. I think that it's good that it tries to tackle these topics. They are important to be tackled, but I also don't think that this is like the best way to talk about them. I would say that if you like the premise and like try this out, but go in knowing that the premise is mostly there as an excuse for these characters to get it on. Okay? Yeah, that's my review. I gave this 3 stars. And there you have it. Those were all of the books that I finished reading in May. I hope you liked this video. If you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them, and leave me a rainbow emoji down in the comments so I know you were here. And I will see you next time with another video. Bye bye!